So I want to go over a couple of his illustrations here and kind of explain what someone like this does to texture his drawing. First interesting thing here is how he textures this finger specifically. Notice how he's not just identifying this diagonal here with straight lines, but instead he chooses to show this texture of the finger here with these lines that kind of represent fat or the micro folds of the skin. He does this a lot, like even in the palm of the hand here. So the takeaway here is that when you are texturing skin from the side, this is kind of angled here, this is angled. Use this texture. This texture is going to come up a lot even in this next drawing over here. As you can see, he is still using these lines along this finger that we saw in this previous example. But what I want to talk about here is actually this knuckle. The hand is a really complex object, and as you get deeper into studying the anatomy, you'll realize like how many things really jolt out from the top of the finger. These little sections of the finger are an example of this. Finger from a side profile will have this area of fat jolting out, and Bridgman does a good job of expressing this from this weird like back angle with this kind of like butt shape. This shape doesn't look like a butt though. One of the things I like a lot about this illustration here is that it looks really complex. It looks like there's a lot of moving parts going on here, but really if you simplify it, it's just this angle here and this one, and then just a lot of 3D modeling here with the exact same texture we talked about in the first example. And these lines serve a double purpose here. They don't only show the texture of the hand here, what they also do is they model the hand. They show the fact that the hand is three-dimensional. Another great example of what I just said there is you have the same texture both for this part of the finger and this part of the finger here, but by just thinking a little bit harder about the direction of your brush strokes here, you can make it very clear where one edge stops and another edge starts. This is good for creating a more realistic feel for the fingers, so you're not just doing everything in these boxy type of geometrical shapes. You want to start off your drawings with very simple geometric shapes like this, for example, but after a certain point you're going to want to start erasing things and creating these bits of texture. You don't want to have these incredibly explicit lines that treat each drawing almost like you're looking at something straight out of Blender. Bridgman also does a good job of differentiating between the two types of knuckles. The first type of knuckle here is at the base of the finger, and then the other knuckles are in between the different phalanges. For reference, this is a phalange, this is a phalange, and this is a separate finger. It's sort of hard to verbally explain here, but at the base of the finger, the knuckles kind of look like parentheses, and there's sometimes where you can see the bone here underneath the skin popping out by the knuckle. That doesn't happen so much on the knuckles that are on the actual finger. This parentheses shape still does exist on the knuckles on the phalanges, but what you're seeing isn't really, oh, look at the bone that's coming through the knuckle here. It's more so like you've got these rungs of fat. Again, don't know how to verbally explain it, but you can kind of see what I mean here on the actual finger. For this part of the knuckle, he continues to use this same repeated texture. Honestly, you can just spam this throughout your fingers. Don't do it without intention, of course, but this is a texture that's going to be very versatile when you're drawing fingers. Another thing I like about Bridgman's drawings is that his drawings are extremely exaggerated, which give a lot of character to them. Don't be afraid to sort of embellish parts of the hand that you think stand out more in your mind. You can exaggerate them in the drawing because what you're trying to capture isn't an exact replica of what you're seeing, but an impression of how you feel about the world around you. That's what art is. So take this out of Bridgman's playbook. Be very expressive and dramatic about how the bones jut out of the fingers. I think that's about all I want to touch on in this video. I highly recommend reading this guy's books, George B. Bridgman. You can download most of his stuff for free on either LibGen or Internet Archive.